Well, let's quickly move on now to our top story. A day after the chaos in Parliament, a lot of opposition MPs are now going to the President. They have written a letter. This is the letter in which they have said that the entire process in the Rajya Sabha in terms of the voice vote that took place was rammed down their throats. It is unacceptable. It is unparliamentary. We'll get to our debate in a moment from now, but I'm joined by Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, Rajya Sabha MP. He was actually asked by opposition parties to draft both the no confidence motion against the Deputy Chair and now the representation of almost all NDA parties to the President. Dr. Singhvi, point number one, ramming legislation down the throat of disagreeing parliamentarians without allowing it to be tested freely and fairly by a vote by division. Legally, is this allowed? Constitutionally, is this allowed? Even if there is one party that says that, look, there needs to be a vote by division, isn't it mandatory for the chair to allow this?
I'm glad we are getting to the specifics and not having noise without proper analysis. Anybody who has been for one day in Parliament knows the very strange sight where there are 99.95 every member in Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha for that matter saying, please, Mr. Vishnu Shom, don't ask for division because the whole House agrees. There are lots of bills where the whole House agrees or a clause in a bill. But Vishnu Shom may be from Kerala and he wants to make a point privately and publicly. He said, I only want my name to go as somebody who having raised the point. So I insist on a division. And it leads to much mirth and jokes in Parliament that, look, we will bribe you with anything you want not to have a division. Division takes too much time. Everybody is agreeing. Why are you having a division? Even then the law is that the chairman is the chair is obliged to have a division.
Okay.
Look at the length of the point I'm making.
Right.
Now, yesterday I was in the House. We were, of course, 50% in the Lok Sabha. We are now temporarily, inverted commas, elected to the Lok Sabha. 50% were in the Rajya Sabha. Number one, there were at least 6, 7, 8 people shouting from their seats for a division. The minister started speaking at 20 odd minutes before 1 o'clock or 15 minutes before 1 o'clock. Now, the limit during COVID is 1 o'clock. If you're exceeding 110, people are asking for division. When the division was not being granted, then some of those MPs asking rush to the well, and there would have been disturbance, there would have been unacceptable acts. I immediately concede. But that is after not giving a division despite shouting. The balance continued in their seats and kept asking for division. So the reason given to decline division that people are not in their seats is wrong because form cannot take the place of substance.
Okay, Dr. Singhvi, my next question to you. The bottom line over here is the question of numbers, right? You have argued, all of these MPs have argued in the letter which you have drafted, that look, it is positive proof of the lack of numbers and the lack of support. Are you absolutely certain about this?
Well, the way things happen tomorrow, this is one example. If you have numbers, Vishnu, who is more scared, you or me? Why will you oppose the division if you have numbers? And ask one more simple question. Yesterday, if you worst comes to worst, I can understand that the chairman and the person in the chair felt intimidated. Let me assume that. Simple thing to have done is, let's calm it down. 1 o'clock has happened. We'll have it tomorrow, that is today, Monday. And have a division on Monday. दूध का दूध और पानी का पानी हो जाएगा. It is only if you as a government are scared that you kept on insisting and got the bill passed. I cannot for the life of me understand, and let me tell you, I have the greatest respect for both the chairman and our deputy chairperson. It's not about individuals, it's about issues. Why could the chairman, why did he treat yesterday as the last day as if of the current parliamentary session? What on earth prevented him from having a division today? And how could you at the end of the 1 o'clock or 1:15 we had reached by then, simply say the bill stand passed? I can understand. They're not passed today. We are adjourning the House. We'll come tomorrow.
That said, Dr. Singhvi, do you not condemn the behavior of certain MPs? Irrespective of whether or not Derek O'Brien actually did tear that rule book, he was certainly had it in his hand. He appeared to be doing something with it. Mics were removed. People went up to the chair. Is that acceptable? What happened?
Let me start by saying I don't want to take names, but Derek O'Brien, since the name you have taken, has specifically denied. In fact, he's gone to the extent of saying
you
that...
You were there, what did you see?
No, I'm telling you. Now, even on what we saw, two things we were made not to see. We saw the head of a person who must well have been Derek O'Brien, showing the rule book and gesticulating with it before the chairman. This is what I personally saw.
Okay.
I saw no tearing. Number two, what the Rajya Sabha TV should have shown and did not show is that within minutes of that, the security personnel called into the Rajya Sabha chamber, not into our Lok Sabha chamber where half of us were, was almost more than the number of MPs in the Rajya Sabha chamber.
But isn't that natural if they're protecting the deputy chair in a situation when MPs have stormed the well, they've gone up to his chair, their mics are being moved, irrespective of whether he tore it or not, you know, I mean, it was an aggressive, it was aggressive, right? It was an aggressive move.
I am saying I don't defend wrong behavior, but what about the other three things?
No, sure, you made your point. I understand the constitutional propriety of what is happening is being questioned.
How is there quorum? No, there are two more points in just 15 seconds. How is there Vishnu quorum if half the members are in the Lok Sabha chamber? Our chamber was not asked.
Right.
The chairman didn't look at us. He didn't invite us to participate, to speak.
Right.
Division, people shouting at division here also. Now, that is virtually a lack of quorum. I mean, it's not that just because of COVID you're having in two houses.
Okay.
Therefore, ignore one chamber, not houses, chamber.
Okay, okay. Dr. Singhvi, I need to move on to my other panel. Thanks very much for making the points that you've actually made. Joining us now, Pinaki Mishra of the BJD. We're joined by KK Rajesh, the suspended CPM MP of the Rajya Sabha. Syed Nasir Hussain, I believe, actually joins us from outside, from within the parliament, but he's protesting over there. Lalita Kumara Mangalam joins us as well. Let me come to you, Mr. Hussain, first. You are actually one of the MPs who has been suspended. Do you believe that, look, irrespective of the constitutional issues which have been raised, that the behavior of certain MPs was unacceptable, something which Venkaiah Naidu referred to today?
I think it is not the behavior of the MPs, it is the behavior of the deputy chairman and the stance on the part of the government that has to be discussed at large. Because it is as an MP in the parliament, it is my right to ask for a division. As an MP in the parliament, it is my right to ask for an adjournment if somebody wants to go beyond the stipulated time in the parliament. If the deputy chairman or the chairman, whoever is chairing the session that day, he has to behave in a manner which befits his constitutional position. We were asking, the entire opposition was asking for the house to be adjourned because the timing is from 9 to 1.
Constitutional way of behaving as well, no? I mean, what took place over there? The fact
obviously, what will you do if the deputy chairman doesn't looks at you, doesn't sees you, doesn't look at you, doesn't hear you, doesn't even want to consider that you exist in the parliament, and then he keeps on dictating terms.
Okay, I want to go across to Pinaki Mishra.
If I were to remind the opposition, today
of the behavior of MPs, the biggest issue perhaps is the constitutional issue and the legal issue about whether or not there needs to have been a vote. Are you under the impression, Mr. Mishra, that perhaps the numbers didn't exist with the government at all and that therefore passing this through a voice vote is illegal?
Let's not second guess whether the government had the numbers or not.
Why not?
Vishnu, the fact of the matter is that several non-NDA parties which have by and large supported this government on the basis of cooperative federalism, on the basis of the fact that, if something is in the national interest and this government has piloted legislation, then we will not oppose it simply for the sake of opposition,
right?
Which is sometimes what the Congress and many other parties do, which is the BJD, which is the TRS, which is the AIADMK. Principally these three parties which have a very large presence in the Rajya Sabha, I think almost 30 between us, for the first time yesterday felt that, look, there needs to be a larger, broader inquiry into this issue. If you cannot convince your own cabinet minister who comes from a party of farmers, literally, the Akali Dal is really a party of farmers traditionally. If you cannot convince them, and if so many hundreds and thousands of farmers are on the streets in Punjab and Haryana, then there is something fundamentally, there's a problem. It needs wider consultation. That's all the BJD said, both in the Lok Sabha and in the Rajya Sabha. And I seldom agree with what the Congress position is, but Dr. Singhvi is right most certainly because he's a dear friend of mine, I would agree with him just now.
Okay.
That definitely, if a member asks for division ought to have been granted.
Okay, all right. Just 1 second, Mr. Mishra. I want to go across because I'm short on time today. Lalita Kumaramangalam, the point of the matter is this. Everybody in their right mind would condemn behavior, almost violence, call it what you want, in the Rajya Sabha. That's wrong. It's been condemned. MPs have been suspended. But the larger issue about whether they should have gone through in this manner or not, that's what, let's look at that for a moment. Do you believe that this voice vote was thrust upon MPs who actually wanted A, send it to a standing committee, B, let's talk a little bit more, and C, let's have a division of votes? How was any of these three requests wrong in any way?
Vishnu, first of all, I didn't really hear anybody condemn openly this sort of behavior. What was hinted was that perhaps Derek O'Brien tried to tear, etc. But it's not just tearing a rule book, which is a constitutional book of a constitutional body.
It was abominable. His behavior was action has been taken. But let's look, ma'am, at the substantive issues of the farmer bill. It affects lakhs. It affects millions of farmers in the country. Should there not have been more debate?
It was made, whatever objections were raised by these people were answered by the Agriculture Minister. The Prime Minister himself has made it abundantly and absolutely openly clear that MSP is not going to be dropped. In fact, as you yourself said, they've announced MSP a month before it was supposed to be scheduled to be announced. And any farmer,
but that happened after
what these bills have done is that any farmer will sell to the government at MSP if the rates he's getting is lower. Let us understand that historically, and it's just not just in India, but anywhere else in the world, when hugely important legislation like this, which will change the sector totally, like for example, when Narasimha Rao opened up the economy in 1992, what was said? Exactly that sort of opposition
not allow
will be seen now.
It's a simple question, ma'am.
It will be seen now.
In our Rajya Sabha, MPs have a right to ask for a division of votes. We can debate the merits of the farm bill, and perhaps we should. And you know, there are arguments on either side. But is this parliamentary propriety that if an MP asks, they're not one, in this case many, for a division of votes, it never happened?
Propriety only of the ruling party because you do not agree with their ethos.
No, not at all. I don't. It's not about ethos over here, ma'am. And it has nothing to do with me. I'm just saying, is it not a simple case of respecting what parliamentarians from across the country want? If they want to vote, why not have a vote? Particularly if you claim to have the numbers.
1 minute. Can I reply? You're just asking me questions. You're not allowing me to get a word in. So I can't give my reply if you don't allow me to talk.
Please.
First of all, it's very easy to come to a conclusion saying if, but, etc. These are not absolute words. There is nothing to prove that the BJP could not have pushed the bills through by voice vote. The fact that some members were in the Lok Sabha were not called to the Rajya Sabha, all these are ifs and buts which really don't make any sense. What is very clear is that some MPs were against the fact that the bill is to be passed. We know many MPs, many politicians, not just MPs, and it's not from any party. I think every party has these. Have people who are farmers. There are farmers who have very deep interests and deep pockets in farming.
Okay.
And most of the farmers who've been protested are not from throughout the country.
Okay.
They're basically from two states, Punjab and Haryana. And their protests have been, they have been heeded. What the government will do in order to, whether they'll sit down, talk to them, etc., I don't know.
From parties across the country.
I do know that it seems to have become the fashion nowadays for every bill that is passed, because we
have one moment, ma'am. I just want to go across to my other panelists. Let me go across to Saurabh, who's been waiting very, very patiently. Saurabh Bharadwaj, an Aam Aadmi Party MP, was also one of those, you can correct me if I'm wrong, who's been suspended over here. What exactly, I mean, A, do you believe that what he did was wrong? And B, what are you going to do now? Now that this letter has been drafted, is that good enough?
Vishnuji, I just wanted to tell you about the division of votes. For those who don't understand this while watching the TV, I think every voter in this country who has voted his member of parliament to parliament has a right to know what is the stand of his or her MP. It is very important. So it was important for two reasons. First, whether the government had numbers, whether the bill was passed legally or it was illegal, number one. And number two, I as a voter and everybody as a voter wants to know whether the person they voted for, all the farmers who voted for ex-MP, he stood with this bill or he was against this bill, because they have to vote according to his choice in the parliament. And by doing the voice vote, basically, BJP has provided a defense mechanism to all their allies, because they know that they'll be ashamed by the farmers. And second important point, Vishnu, is that, we have seen in last 6 years, whenever a particular group has protested, there have been protests by the students, there have been protests by the lawyers, there have been protests by the businessmen during GST days, there have been protests by the doctors, and whenever there is a protest, there are protesters in thousands and sometimes in lakhs.
Right.
The narrative is controlled by the government for most of the TV channels. I'm not talking about NDTV.
All right, one second.
Everybody thinks that, this is not my problem. This is the problem of doctors. This is the problem of students. But now I think everybody should understand that even when you protest, nobody will show you on the television. So, so the government controls the narratives. Today, farmers are protesting, but nobody is showing them on the television, because government wants to control the narratives and people are not understanding.
All right, okay. So you're talking about how the message is being controlled. That's a larger issue. Let me go across to Nasir Hussain. Sir, you had a point to make very briefly. Where exactly is this going now? It has gone to the president. If the president chooses not to make his mind, it's done and dusted. It becomes the law. Beyond that, is there anything realistically you can do?
There is no hope from the president.
See, we have already, about 13, 14 opposition parties have written to the President of India not to put his stamp on this bill. Point number one. Point number two, we are already protesting outside the, within the parliament near the Gandhi statue. We will again take it up in the Rajya Sabha tomorrow. And even after all these things, if the bill passes, we'll take this issue to the streets. Let the people of this country decide on this, because we have been promising and we have been standing with the marginal farmer who is the annadata of this country. We will continue, whether they suspend us, whether they throw us out of the parliament, whether they want to block our entry into the parliament, whatever they want to do. We are committed to the marginal farmer. We'll stand by them.
Mrs. Kumaramangalam, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just present some figures to not only the viewers or NDTV, but everybody in this country. First, 15% of GDP is what agriculture is. Only 15% of GDP is actually contributed by agriculture, whereas 1.36 billion people, almost half of those, depend on agriculture in our country.
Yes.
This is the poverty of the average farmer in this country. The farmers protesting in, whether it's in New Delhi or in Chandigarh or in Punjab, they are basically big farmers who are afraid that their control over certain sectors, that their deep purse will not remain so deep. Secondly, MSP has been announced. MSP will continue. Please don't intervene, sir. Let me finish. After that, you can talk. Please do me the courtesy of letting me finish.
Can you come in, please?
Please do not intervene. Let me finish. You can always answer after.
Carry on. We've got 1 minute left.
Any farmer today can sell to anybody he wants. If he thinks MSP is too low, he will go to somebody else to sell it. If he thinks somebody else is giving him too small a lower price, he will sell it to the government for MSP. Thirdly, we have had 20,638 suicides in 2018-19. These are NCRB data, the National Crime Records Bureau data, mainly due to debt.
All right, 1 second. Saurabh Bhardwaj wants to reply to a couple of those points.
It is also about providing facilitation to poor
farmers to saying quite clearly that MSP is being protected. Therefore, why worry about this?
Not part of the act, Prime Minister speaking something in the parliament has no legal binding. MSP is not part of the act. She is manipulating people.
Can I come in, please? Can I come in?
No,
yes, go ahead, Mr. Hussain.
I'm stating facts. These are all data, which is
why
from
is not
data
part of
that the government has put out.
Why is MSP? Why is minimum support price not part of the act?
MSP has already been announced. The PM himself announced. It's very funny
has no legal
that when you want the PM to talk, he's to talk. When he
all right, okay, all right. I'd like to.
Then everything he says is
Can I come in for 30 seconds? Can you give me 30 seconds, please?
Okay, 1 second, Mr. Mishra, last word to you. The key point over here, Mr. Mishra, you've been silent for a while, is it's not in the act, and yet the Prime Minister and others repeatedly say that it is binding, it is there. Is that acceptable to you?
Binding. Prime Minister's voice has no legal.
One second, Mr. Mishra, Pinaki Mishra, last word to you on this. Is MSP binding or not? It's not there in the Act. However, it is there in statements. Is that good enough to your party?
Look,
Mr. Pinaki Mishra.
In this, it places the farmers in an invidious position as far as their bargaining power is concerned. Ms. Kumaramangalam may rattle off whatever figures she wants to. There is no doubt that there are misgivings amongst a very large conspectus of farmers. It's not just the fat cat farmers. You're wrong, madam. There are farmers across the board who are worried about their future. So therefore, all we say is have a wider consultation. There's no need. I don't understand what is your hurry in rushing through this bill. I cannot understand the BJP's anxiety to rush through this bill. For what? Are you looking at some future election? Are you looking to monetize this in the Bihar elections or what? Otherwise, comfortably, a select committee or a standing committee would have looked into this.
All right, okay. All right, Mr. Mishra, I am running short on time on this. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. Let's see where these farmer protests go, and let's see if the farmer community across in different states, different contexts are convinced about what the government is saying.